The sun peeked through the sheer curtains, the first part of the day, to greet you. As you woke up in a sprawling bed that wasn't your own, the other bird catches the worm. It was time to get up. You hopped to your feet and you went through your morning routine, all the while considering the possibilities for your alone time. Baxter wouldn't be meeting up with you until around the afternoon. Your growling stomach made the decision for you. The first thing on your agenda was getting breakfast. By the time your hunger was sated, Baxter hadn't contacted you. You searched for the hotel's gym. What you wore to breakfast wouldn't exactly cut it at the gym, so you returned to your room to retrieve your things before wandering down to the lobby to search. Eventually, you managed to make your way over to the state-of-the-art gym. All the machines gleamed with newness. Each seemed more polished than the last, and tempting as it was, it probably wasn't the best idea to try and use the equipment this soon after eating. Besides, you were going to head out on a hike this afternoon anyway. So instead, you did some light stretching and conditioning off to the side as other guests took up the occupancy on the treadmills and weightlifting machines. By the time 11 rolled around, your phone hummed with a new text from Baxter. It was as formally worded as ever. Good afternoon, Brittany. I will be ready for our hike shortly. I hope the anemones were to your liking. It's been nice. See you soon. Wonderful. I've always enjoyed how responsive you are. I will be ordering lunch in the interim. I thought sandwiches might suit our activities for the day. It should be easy to bring along and fine to eat cold. I would advise straying away from the paninis for that reason. I'll send along the menu shortly. Let me know what you'd prefer. As promised, Baxter attached a perfectly formatted PDF with said options, which seemed increasingly more complex the lower you scrolled down the menu. There were options for next to everything: what bread, what fillings, what cheeses, what spreads. It was enough to make you forget what was available in a category as soon as you moved from one section to another. But you hastily made your decision with the seconds still ticking by and texted your order to Baxter, who replied with a blushy, smiling emoji. An excellent choice. I'll be waiting in the lobby for the delivery then. Make your way down there as soon as you're able. Take care. After sending off that last text, you hurried to rinse off and change before heading to your room. Good shoes were a must when it came to hikes, along with a full water bottle. With the weather and time of day being what it was, you hoped you might catch the last dregs of the cool morning air before the afternoon really set in. Once you were satisfied you had everything that you'd need, you returned to the front of the hotel. The lobby was as carnivorous vacant as ever, so it wasn't hard to find the back of a distinct head of black and white hair near the fireplace with a bag of what were potentially sandwiches. Yet you were certain it wasn't Baxter. It couldn't have been. Sure, his shoes were black, the pants were dark gray. He had a gray bag too, which all aired to the side of monochromatic, but the shirt, his shirt. That man was wearing khaki? It was as if you found a cryptic in the flesh. You never thought you'd see the day where Baxter Ward was wearing a color that wasn't, well, that he was wearing any color at all. Of course, he knew it wasn't actually a stranger with the same unique hairstyle and his body type, but it was hard not to joke about. Baxter turned at the sound of your footsteps. Ah, Brittany. He grinned, jaw tense. Baxter probably would have been more comfortable trotting around the lobby in nothing more than his presumably black and white underwear. He was the guy that described skinny dipping as invigorating after all. Hi, do you need a change? Beige wasn't as shell-shocking as something that was, say, highlighter yellow, but on Baxter might as well have been. He took a deep breath, a very deep breath. With his eyes closed and his hand intentionally tightening its grip around the bag, his answer finally came out in the same exhale. I only brought one shirt that was suitable for a hike with me on this trip. I'd been certain I wouldn't need more than that. He looked away, hand brushing through his hair again as he worked to find the words. Oh my god. After you left, I found this among my things. Baxter grimaced. He looked at the errant shirt as if he'd been hit with a splash from a mud puddle. And regrettably, I did not find anything else. This is the shirt I brought for outdoor activities. The fates would have had it that I only found out when there was no time to run out and get a replacement, thus leaving me with a few remaining options: a formal button-down, one of my designer top silk pajamas, or... He gestured to the khaki shirt with both finality and defeat. So you own it? Baxter shook his head empathetically. The light in his eyes betrayed his expression with some delight that at least you found his misfortune entertaining enough to prod at.
Never.
No, I suppose I must have accidentally stolen it from a roommate. I don't know who else would own a khaki button-down other than that prep. My memories of the final pack at dawn before I set out to California are hazy to say the least. I had believed at the time that I took a pale gray, sturdy cotton shirt for occasions like this. The low lighting and my waning focus in the moment betrayed me. Sighing, he straightened the thieved attire. If he was going to be unpresentable, it should at least be decently so. The sandwich bag fell against his hip as his eyes met yours. I must ask that you keep this a secret, Brittany. Sure, but just know I'll be saving this as info. Just know that I'll be saving this info as blackmail. He snorted, though the tension in his forehead relaxed at the suggestion. At least you were considerate enough to call it blackmail. As unhappy with his predicament as he was, there was something undeniably sweet about the fact he hurried to make it at the risk of keeping you waiting. The collar of his shirt was crumpled, and parts of it were wrinkled, lightly from the hasty packing after he finally discovered the horrible mistake. The latter couldn't be fixed without an iron, but at least the collar could be smoothed over. You reached out instinctively to fix it, incidentally brushing gently against the side of his neck as he straightened out the crease. Pale skin flushed with sun and warmth, pinking as your fingertips fell against the hollow of his throat. His Adam's apple bobbed, his breath hitching in his throat. His embarrassment managed to ease into laughter. Baxter covered his mouth to stifle the chuckles that echoed through the empty foyer. You tried your best to keep from cackling any more than you already did at his poor beige and blue expense. Well, regardless of what color I may be wearing, beige, he raised an eyebrow before directing a pair of rolled eyes your way. Right. We should be able to still continue with our plans. It isn't as though anyone will see me in public like this. Who will the trees tell? Nobody, but remember, I'll always know what happened.
You know.
Contrary to my belief, my ego will endure. Besides what? He turned to face you then as the first genuine smile that you'd seen out of him all day curved on his lips. His right hand fell solemnly on your shoulder by comparison, gave it a gentle squeeze. No one will ever believe you. Shaking your head, you adjusted the straps of your bag on your shoulders. Okay, if you're done. Baxter gave you a world-weary glance, as if to say he was already greatly limiting how much he could have gone on about it. We can head on out. Let's. He packed away the sandwiches into the bigger, properly gray bag, truly ending his lament about the state of his attire. Once he was certain the food was not liable to be flattened, Baxter gestured for you to follow him out of the hotel and onto the nearby trailhead behind the building. The path initially was paved and clearly marked. As you continued at a leisurely pace, it eventually narrowed into a larger swath of evergreen trees and beaten ground. The mountain air was sharper than the sea breeze you were so used to. Instead of salt, you could smell pine in between the wafts of liberally applied sunscreen. I cannot talk today, I'm sorry y'all. With a pleasant breeze and a coolness drawn from a stream, the weather was more than ideal for a hike. Tree boughs provided cover too, hiding you both from the high afternoon sun. Foliage rustled at your feet as your shoes kicked up the fallen turf. The path wasn't big enough for you to walk side by side, so Baxter took the front. After some prolonged silence, he spoke up.
Perfect.
I'm glad that this trail matches what I saw online. It seemed like an easy hike as it lacks steep inclines. The path ahead is clear. Yeah, it's been nice so far. And the company makes this all the more charming. You're looking pretty comfortable on the trail. Do you hike a lot? He turned his gaze up to the tree canopy, considering the question for a moment as leaves crunched underfoot and the path sloped uphill. I don't go often, but I'm quite used to it if that is the question. I'm not sure if I consider it among my personal hobbies, but I'm not averse to it. I welcome the opportunity, in fact, when it is available. That's shocking. Are you sure you're really Baxter? His easy smile turned into a smirk as he pushed a wayward branch out of your way. Excellent, then I will take it as a good thing that I'm not yet out of surprises, though I would not call myself a mountaineer proper. Considering you're from an actual town in Oregon that has mountains around it, that's surprising. He chuckled, stopping in place at a partial ascent. Baxter glanced over his shoulder at you and watched for any signs of difficulty with your footing. I may be fit to impress on a day hike similar to this, but I knew some people who truly could call themselves wilderness aficionados. Oh my god, I just said that wrong. The types that you would see in a reality survival show, I'd wager, in the Alaskan wilds fighting a bear for salmon. You paint such beautiful pictures with your words. Thank you. I'm speaking of the Murrays, the parents and their 2 teens who would regularly... yeah, wait, yep. If you guys have not seen Our Life Now Forever, go watch that series because you will know what he's talking about. I mean, speaking of the Murrays, the parents and their 2 teens who would regularly go on backpacking trips that would last days and they'd sleep outside in the middle of the woods.
Certainly.
What's more, they enjoyed rappelling down cliffsides. Certainly they had safety gear, but I can't fathom willingly going to such degrees. Or rather, it might be more a point to say that I can't imagine surviving them. Though you had plenty to say about that between Mr. Holden's entire business of living so close to the ocean. But it wasn't long before you decided to stop for lunch. It had already been a few hours since you had breakfast, and Baxter hadn't eaten anything yet for the day. There weren't picnic tables along the path, so the task fell on you to find somewhere to take a break. It happened to be the case that you saw a nice and sunny spot with some nice flat rocks first. How about we take a lunch break over there? Following your raised arm, Baxter eventually nodded in agreement. The 2 of you headed over to the stones and shrugged off your packs. After digging through his bag's contents, he produced the 2 sandwiches and handed over yours. The sound of crinkling beeswax paper unwrapping announced the start of lunch. Baxter already made it abundantly clear that he didn't do water activities, most of them at least. But it struck you that he'd probably never tried one of the premier aquatic sports that marked this oceanfront state of yours. Hey Baxter, what do you think about surfing? He was about to take another bite of his sandwich when you posed the question and merely smirked when it was finally registered. I know you wouldn't do it yourself, but maybe you enjoy watching. It is quite a feat, I must admit. I think there's nothing like it. Everyone who surfs talks about being in the tube, but honestly, it's you in the ocean end. And though he wasn't interested in trying, Baxter did pay attention to everything you said about surfing to the T, enough to merit asking follow-up questions at least. While stuffing your face, keeping up a conversation fell off the list of priorities. Baxter followed your lead and dedicated himself to his own sandwich. Real silence was avoided thanks to the delightful world around you. The rustles of leaves, the bubbling of water, even a small songbird floated by overhead before landing on a nearby branch. It seemed to stare directly at you and chirped. It was so picturesque that it belonged on a postcard. For the mundane activity of eating lunch, it was almost too much. Could one be overly serene? I'm really glad we're here. Me too. He polished off his sandwich first and then wiped his fingers on a paper napkin. He had been certain to pack those. This is a lovely place. Perhaps I'm being fanciful, but this feels almost dreamlike. Huh? You understood where he was coming from. Up on this mountain, your everyday life felt so far away. It was far away. You traveled for miles to be here. This time you both were far from home and in the middle of unfamiliar. It was nature's domain, untainted in a different way than your experiences with the ocean. I know what you mean. Baxter reached out and grabbed a leaf from the ground, twirling it around with his fingers. Exactly. As you worked on finishing your own lunch, a heavy weight dropped on your shoulder. After a beat, you realized it was just Baxter leaning on you, apparently having finished lunch and making himself comfortable. His eyes were closed, dark lashes especially apparent against his cheekbones, and lips parting softly with quiet breaths. For a second, you wondered if he fell asleep again until he spoke up, as if already aware of the fact that you wanted to ask. This is nice. It wasn't much of the answer, though he did crack an eye open to look up at you from his perch. Yeah, it is. He closed his eye again, this time veering his cheek a little closer into the hollow between your shoulder and your head. Are you tired? Baxter considered the suggestion for a second, then noted slowly against your shoulder. If it'll let me stay a while, I guess. Alright.
Thank you.
Why, thank you. You know, the forest that I grew up with had a different foliage. At least 60% of the plants growing here only exist in this climate. Is that true?
No.
Like your question, his answer was straightforward. You goggled at him from the whiplash. He grinned like the Cheshire cat, self-satisfied and smug. His eyes glittered with amusement. I entirely made that up off the top of my head. Although, since I know truly nothing about California wildlife, it may reflect reality after all. Probably not, but I can't rule it out completely. He laughed at his nonsense. He was so blunt about it. At your mouth, his grin grew wider and he regaled you with other fake nature facts. He spoke about the California mountain hare, the only North American rodent that ate a large diet of bees and was entirely made up by a man who normally dressed in monochrome. But the meal was over by that point, and you did have a trek ahead before you could return to the hotel. Baxter separated himself from your shoulder, perky as ever. Trash and scraps were thrown into the delivery bag. Baxter stuffed it into his normal bag.
Good.
Leave no trace. Yep, looks like we got everything. With everything stowed away, the two of you slid off the rock and rejoined the path. Both you and Baxter were fully recharged from the lunch break. You continued the hike steadily, keeping a good pace. Without warning, Baxter ruined himself in the middle of the path. Oh, look at that. He jerked his head and you followed his gaze. Further out on his side of the trail was the stream flowing swiftly. But you immediately know what part of the scene caught his attention. Laying across the banks, a tree had fallen to create a natural bridge. You stepped around him to get a better vantage point. The trunk had to be 3 feet thick and covered in vibrant green moss. Leaves had long fallen from the few remaining branches. Baxter's bright eyes stayed on it. He grinned all the while.
Exciting.
1 minute, please. I need to walk across that. It's too perfect to simply pass on by. He took a large step and promptly left the path. A twig snapped. Oh my god, you left at his plan. Your hands lifted to cover your gaping mouth as you watched. He was really just going for it. His steps were bouncy as he navigated through the forest brush to the tree bridge. You laugh, but honestly, when else will I have the chance to walk across a tree? There's even a sunbeam shining through the forest canopy. It's like there's a spotlight on it. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. I want to do that too.
Glad to hear it.
Then follow me. Let us proceed on our fortuitous adventure. He slowed down so you could catch up. He led the way to the stream, warning you of the various obstacles he dodged on the forest floor. Finally, he skipped over some stones and then squeezed himself between a group of thick bushes. His efforts were surprisingly graceful. You clambered on the rocks behind him and took a minute to assess the bushes yourself. Going all the way around would be a hassle. There was a small gap under one of the bushes, but unless you were prepared to crawl, you didn't think you'd fit. You followed Baxter's path, lightly bending a few branches out of your way. You go through without any scratches. Now through the gauntlet, catching up with Baxter was easy. This close to the stream bank, it was mostly more stones and short grasses. Baxter slyly placed a foot on the trunk suspended over it. He tested his weight and then rocked his heel to shake the bridge. The tree gave no sign of giving under pressure. No matter what he did, it wasn't budging. Excellent. The safety check complete, he gingerly lifted his other foot and stood fully on the collapsed trunk. Even if it was stuck, the wood had to be slick. Wet and round were an ideal combination. Your forehead crinkled. Baxter showed no concern for that and walked further along an inch at a time until he was above the water. One wrong move and he'd be in that river. You carefully climbed on. First you sat down, then pulled up your feet. The damp bark was unpleasant, especially on your knees as you first crouched. However, when you stood up, the tree stayed firm. You breathed a sigh of relief. He went across the stream with his arms out in light steps, heel toe, heel toe. It was almost like he was floating on air, his movements smooth and assured. You weren't having any trouble either. You shimmied along after Baxter with confidence. The tree was more scared of you than you were of it. When the moss grew thick over the trunk, it squashed under your shoe. However, it was firmly attached and your foot never slipped. As long as you didn't falter, you'd keep your balance. The log was large enough that even with how round it was, you had plenty of room. When you reached the halfway point directly over the heart of the stream, Baxter paused.
Is that fine?
Sorry to block the path. Can we take a minute here? Sure. He twisted, pivoting his feet so he faced the water. You copied him and breathed in the beauty. Together you stood on top of a fallen tree as the stream flowed right underneath. The water was clear, tiny fish darted in and out of hiding places. It was its own little universe tucked away at the top of a mountain. Ooh. Your hand found Baxter's. You took hold of him and he squeezed you back. Aww. Then you kissed him on the lips. You lean closer to him, careful of both of your positions on the tree bridge. It wouldn't do to smooch your boyfriend off a tree. He tilted his face towards you, giving you perfect access to your target. You kissed him on the lips, much to his delight. He kissed you back. He kissed you back sweetly before pulling away with a smile. I am quite grateful for my impeccable balance in cases like this. How often can you really get into situations like this? Oh, you'd be surprised. Suddenly, there was a splash in the stream below. A ripple spread across the water, but the cause of it remained a mystery. There was nothing to be seen. Baxter restored his attention to the log. He tapped on the trunk, kicking off a loose remnant of bark. We don't actually need to go all the way across. Nothing particularly enthralling is over there.
Bravo.
I've enjoyed our little tryst very much, but I believe this is the curtain call. Alright. You led the charge off of the tree, Baxter's hand warm in yours. You both kept each other grounded until you actually reached the ground. As a joke, you pretended to kiss the ground. You fell to your knees dramatically, offering thanks and appreciation to Mother Nature. Beautiful, fantastic ground. You really hammed it up. Your pantomimed kisses made Baxter exhale sharply. He was politely trying not to laugh at your display. I'm so grateful we survived, as am I, Brittany. Back to the trail. You nodded and started squeezing your way past the vegetation in your way. Baxter followed you for a change. Finally, the path was under your feet. It sure was faster than trekking directly through the overgrowth. On we go. Not oh we go. As your hike resumed, Baxter's jaunty attitude stood out. This entire trip, he had seemed different, more lighthearted. Usually when he was in a playful mood, it was more teasing. He was still very controlled, but out here, now, it wasn't the same. Maybe because he was in the middle of nowhere, he felt extra free, or maybe it was because he had already broken character with his unintentionally stolen shirt. Or, and this was the strangest possibility to consider, maybe it was entirely normal for him to act like this and you didn't know. Gradually, it grew darker and darker. Less light made it through the canopy of leaves above you. The sun slipped behind the surrounding mountains. It was well into evening when you caught sight of the hotel. We've arrived.
To be honest.
Honestly, I'm having many regrets. His tone was light and jokey, but there was something boldly truthful to his words. I should have reserved the rooms for much longer. Everything is ending much too soon for my taste. He rubbed a hand through his hair, exhaustedly sweeping it back into place. However, at this point, there is no helping it. Yeah. You returned to the warm lights of the lobby, the plush red carpet squashed in a strangely decadent way compared to how gross you felt from tromping around the woods all day. Baxter halted you mid-stride with a question. What are your plans now? You hadn't thought that far, but Baxter didn't pause long enough for you to answer. If you're willing, we could eat dinner together. For example, I've heard the room service here is divine. We could also go somewhere else, but I'd require a few minutes to change. I don't mind hiding away from the public with you. You discovered my evil plan. He sighed dramatically as he chuckled at his fake shame. I should have expected you'd figure me out. My true desire is returning to the room and relaxing, then cleaning up at this hour of the night. No worries, I'm not judging.
Wonderful.
I appreciate it. Now, once we order food, then tonight will be perfect. Perhaps I'll have a salad. I swear it's not because we've been surrounded by leaves all day. Your stomach gurgled at the mention of food. The new plan was just in time and you headed straight up to Baxter's room. He led the way to his suite like the hotel was the back of his hand, though it was a simple layout. But under his confident guidance, you reached the destination. He dropped your bags on the floor. The carpet muffled the thump. Baxter spread his now free arms widely to welcome you in. Please take a seat wherever you like. Baxter moved towards the nightstand and scrunched up a pamphlet on hotel services. You sat down at the side table. Baxter flipped through the booklet until he spied the menu. Found it. He joined you around the table and placed the menu down so both of you could read it. At a glance, most of the options were classic comfort foods. It matched the cabin in the woods aesthetic that the hotel was going for. However, it also had a sprinkling of more high-end options to cater to a certain set of his clientele. I can't say that. It couldn't be understood how weird the concept of getting lobster in a hotel was. All entrees came with a seasonal veggies and a homemade roll. In addition, you could also pick a side of mashed potatoes, fries, French onion soup, or a salad. Baxter was hemming and hawing as he did when spoiled for choice. You could only hope it wouldn't be as much of a struggle for him as choosing which ice cream to get. You considered the options for yourself and decided on. I forgot we're vegan. Wait, are we vegan? I don't remember. Ooh, that sounds good. Grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup. As for the side, you picked your favorite of the list. Let's do fries. There's nothing standing out on the menu for me, but that makes it easy. I'll get the risotto and a side salad. So you're getting your bowl of leaves after all. I am indeed. Baxter confirmed your order again, as well as repeating his own before swanning over to the room phone. He dialed room service and placed the order promptly.
Goodbye.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye. He hung up the call and sat down in the corner of the bed. He tapped his fingers on his... All that was left was to wait. You decided to spend the time cooling down from the hike and cleaned up a bit. Baxter cranked up the AC and washed his face with a damp towel. You collected a bucket of ice from the hallway ice machine and treated yourself to some crisp water. About 30 minutes after the order was put in, a knock rattled the door. Baxter volunteered to get it. Hello. He opened the door and let in a waiting staff member. The employee rolled in a cart carrying literal silver platters. What? They set out the food on the table for you. Please enjoy your dinner. Let us know if you need anything else. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Privately, you were impressed by the fanciness of the presentation. The staff member made their farewells, leaving you to your meal. You recovered around the table once more.
Wow.
This food comes from the restaurant in the hotel. It's not a small operation preparing it. Oh? Chatting and chewing happened in turns. The topic inevitably came to your preferences for food. Everyone always talks about fries and ice creams going well together, but honestly, they're missing out on the obvious. You know what? I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Fries and whipped cream are even better, but it's still a sweet and salty combination, but you don't have to deal with cold fries. That wasn't even the first strange food he brought to the conversation. He started off with something oh gosh. Google Translate. No, we're starting the year off right. We are not having me mess up any words that I can't pronounce. So let me get my Google Translate. English. If I can find it here. And how do you spell that? Okay. Wait.
Innocuous.
Innocuous. Okay. He started with something innocuous. And then slip in an oddity to watch your reaction. How many were real and how much fell into the realm of 60% unique plants? i.e. complete and utter nonsense. Have you ever thought of trying fries with pies, you tease? You don't think I'm being serious? No, you didn't think he was serious. It takes a lot more than finding good flavor combinations than rhyming. If it worked like that, then nothing would ever go well with oranges. Sure, Baxter. After many food admissions that made Baxter either the king of weird taste buds or a reigning jester, dinner came to an end. When you glanced back at the clock, you found that it was later than you ever would have guessed. It'd been a long day. Sitting back in your chair, you stretched your arms up. Your legs were feeling the effects of trapati. Here we go again. I'm already getting frustrated with myself because I cannot pronounce these words I've never heard of. Okay. Traipsing. Uphill for miles. I've heard it before, but I didn't know to spell like that. Let me actually change it. A yawn bubbled up when your phone rang. Who'd be calling you at this time? You pulled out your phone and checked if there was anything that mattered or a spam call. Liz's name showed on the screen. Right. Of course your sister wouldn't wait any longer for the mandatory check-in. You were late. At least she hadn't jumped straight to the police.
In that case...
You're welcome to answer that if you'd like. I can give you privacy. No, it's my sister. You don't have to go anywhere. You tap the screen to answer the call and put it on speaker. That way both of you could say hello. Hey, Liz.
Hey.
Surprise chicken, Brittany. Are you still alive? Did that Victorian era emo man give you any trouble? Yes, I would. Unless you were a zombie, there was no way you'd be answering the phone otherwise. Baxter was already leaning on the table with his elbows propped up on the counter. Now he lazily rested his chin on one of his fists. Hello, that's certainly a unique description. I can't say I have ever heard of the likes of it before. Oh. She paused. Liz was now aware she said that in front of the so-called Victorian era emo man. I stand by it! Hello to you, Baxter. I'm making sure that everything is well with my little sister, you understand. I do completely. Fine, so again, what are you doing? We just had room service for dinner. Sheesh, lucky. I had to make my own dinner like a peasant. Sorry, you'll survive. What is this, your let them eat cake moment? Despite Liz's retort, you could hear her muffle a cackle. Maybe I don't want to survive, I want to thrive. Like you and your novelty boyfriend. Not my problem! The TV went back and forth a while longer while Baxter watched with increasing entertainment. Anyways, clearly you're still breathing, so I'll let you go. It'd be discourteous of, oh my gosh. Okay, Google Translate again. The fact that I had to pull out this thing 3 times in the past 5 minutes, that is actually ridiculous. Why are you not working? Peace. Oh my gosh. No.
Discourteous.
Discourteous. I really need to learn how to pronounce words. It'd be discourteous to keep you from your suitor any longer. She spoke in a mock formal tone, poking at Baxter. He playfully responded, how gracious of you, Miss Taylor. You are indeed a gentlewoman.
Bye.
See you tomorrow, sis. Bye, Liz. See you then.
Take care.
Yes, take care. I will. Make sure you take care of her. On that slight threatening note, Liz hung up. Baxter's lips twitched upwards. Your family is charmingly protective. I realize that more and more every day. They're not usually like this, it's just unusual circumstances, I imagine. I'm nearly a stranger and I cannot deny that I'm imposing a great deal on your free hours. It's good to be cautious.
Honestly.
And truly I do like your family, at least as much as I can from the little we've interacted. Speaking of. He lifted his head and his hand fell under his chin. Instead, he furrowed his brow. In general, I would never dare to be this presumptuous, but I cannot deny that I'm deeply curious about you as a person. So I'll venture to ask if you'd be willing to share more about your family history. Oh, it made sense. Your family wasn't a mother and father who had children born to them. He knew that much. There are more ways than one that you could have come together. You didn't remember ever explaining anything to him. That's fine. I don't mind talking about it. You could at least give him the highlights. Baxter humored many of your questions about him. Getting to know each other better was a two-way street. I'm adopted and Liz is too. We're from different places and we're adopted at different times. But we both were really young. We spent almost our entire lives together. I see. Well, it's fantastic how you have made your own beautiful family. Thanks, Baxter. His words made you feel warm inside. You respected how easily he took it. It made you wonder about his family situation. He had been rather closed-mouthed about it so far, and again, the two-way street analogy came to mind. Are you and your parents blood related? Oh yes, we certainly are. His voice took on a certain amused bent. His lips stretched thin. My parents might have well been through with me many times over if I wasn't their own flesh and blood. Before you could ask what he meant by that, he chuckled. Sorry, no, that is me being dramatic. They're family and I'm their son. That is what matters at the end of the day, blood related or not. It's Nice your parents care about you. You wouldn't voice a flicker of worry. I'm thankful for that as well. Now, if I wasn't the boy they raised together in any capacity, then there would be problems. He laughed some more and brought his fingers to his lips. That topic was over. Well, he pulled at the collar of his roommate's shirt. His gaze searched out the room's ticking clock. It has been a delightful day, but I should not linger forever. There is much to do tomorrow. Good night, Brittany. Good night. He stood and with a slight wave, he grabbed his bag to go. Baxter, this is your room? Where are you going? Suddenly flustered, Baxter scratched the back of his zebra head. He then grinned down at you. That is correct. He stiffly returned to his chair and sat with one knee held up to his chest. Then I will in fact stay right here. You, however, are welcome to go when you are ready. You got to your feet, sparing him from further embarrassment. With you moving to leave, Baxter found his shoes very interesting. I hope you get some sleep. Baxter hesitated to reply. You paused, sensing that he would answer. He just needed a little more time to choose the right words. Well, I do intend to sleep, but in truth, I don't expect it will be soon. I will be packing after you take your leave, and after that, who knows? What do you mean? What else could you do? Baxter chuckled and tapped his foot. I said who knows, didn't I? You frowned defeated. He snorted at you, and it was difficult keeping a straight face. Okay, that's not exactly correct. I'll admit, I know myself fairly well. I also am aware of a drink station in the lobby that is open at every hour. There is also a fire that stays lit all throughout the night as well. I'm expecting that instead of being in bed like a proper young man, I will end up in the lobby with a cup of tea. Baxter, that's a bad idea. With checkout tomorrow morning, you worry that he'd keep himself up too late. Baxter inclined his head sympathetically, though wasn't too concerned with your disapproval. Not to worry, all will be well. Does that mean you're still going to do it? His eyes twinkled with a familiar mischief. Good night, Brittany. Good night, Baxter. You weren't going to be able to convince him otherwise. His bad decision was out of your hands. With that, you twisted the handle and left. You made it to your own identical room, conveniently right next door. The door's deadbolt clicked shut behind you and you flicked on the light. Despite the new illumination, the suite was not as bright as Baxter's room. How was Baxter's room so lively while yours was this? You sat on your cold bed inside. A familiar carpet was spread beneath your feet. The walls were matched. The same pictures were attached to the wall. Physically, there wasn't a difference. The change was the fact that now you were by yourself. After spending all day with Baxter's grin, you were lonely in its absence. But at least that wouldn't be long. You'd see Baxter again soon, one way or another. The last and only full day of your mini vacation was drawing to a close, and the warm night pressed black and silent against the window panes. You were lying in the spacious bed, flat on your back, staring up at the ceiling. You hadn't yet nodded off, recent memories still fizzing in your brain, the woods, the stream, the infamous shirt. You wondered if Baxter was in his room right now or if he'd made good on his threat to sneak downstairs for a spot close to the fire and in a non-specific drink. Curiosity won out, might as well go and check. Surrendering to the impulse for a little snooper, you kicked off the bedclothes, sat up, and clambered out of bed. You crept into the hall, which was brightly lit, although all the other patrons were holed up in the rooms for the night. No staff were manning the front desk. It was dead quiet and still. As you padded your way downstairs, the omnipresent silence seemed like it was something you could touch, a thin blanket swaddling you. Your footsteps and breathing felt muffled. In spite of that, the air was fairly cold. The grand foyer had high ceilings, and the Alright, I don't feel like pulling out Google Translate again. The mezzanine floors and wide open space invited a permanent draft. I don't even know what that word. I've never even heard of that word. The central fireplace might come across totally pointless in the middle of summer in California, but that wasn't giving its due. Now blazing bravely against the chill, it was a welcome beacon of comfort. Surrounding the hearth was a raised stone platform. There you could see a lone-seated figure silhouetted against the flames. It was Baxter, warming himself by the fire. A paper cup was clutched in his hands, a pale film of steam rising from it. He hadn't changed into his pajamas, still sporting that khaki interloper. He must have counted on nobody else being around to see the horror that late. The dull thud of feet on the carpeted floor heralded your approach. His portrait smoothly transitioned from a profile to a 3/4 view. His eyes met yours and he grinned. Brittany, what a pleasant surprise. I assumed you to be abed at this late hour. You couldn't quite get over the way he used the word abed, like it was a common slang. Maybe the wealth of fancy upholstery in here was having some kind of rapid aging effect on him. Either way or the khaki. Either that or the khaki had finally affected his brain. Like, you didn't know I'd come take a look. Oh no, saying I knew outright is putting it too strongly. I merely harbored a suspicion, and as usual, you didn't disappoint me. Still, since you're here now, you might as well stay for a while, don't you think? Sure. It was always going to end up like this, you thought to yourself. Rolling the thin cup slowly between his palms, Baxter jerked his head over to one side, drawing your attention to a long table up against the far wall. The drink station is over there if you care to partake. A beverage of some kind might be just the thing to top off our late night rendezvous. I'll pass. Of course, whatever suits you. Baxter scooted over on his perch, patting the stonework with his free hand to indicate that you should take a seat beside him. You popped yourself in front of the fire, relishing the cozy glow on your skin and the heated slabs beneath you. Baxter was staring absently into the grate. As you sat there with him, enveloped in the warmth of the fireplace and the closeness of his presence, you felt... sleepy, safe, comfortable, like you could have drifted off right then and there. Baxter slowly sipped his tea and then set his cup down next to him. It's funny, more than once on this little excursion, I found myself forgetting that I'm supposed to be on a summer vacation. Especially right now, curled up in front of a fire, cradling a cup of something hot. It puts me in mind of long autumn nights, when the days are beginning to waste away to nothing. And this decor too, the wood, the stone, the grandeur. I might have believed myself to be back in my childhood home in Oregon, really. He lifted a leg up onto the edge and tucked his knee under his chin, still focused on the burning light. His expression was distant, wistful. Yes, it's one of the reasons I chose this hotel, as a matter of fact. Though I never lived in a building on the scale, the effect is similar. You could say that I was raised in a big, cool house. Cool in the sense of impressive rather than underheated. That was what my friends used to call it. I loved it when they would come and visit. There was scarcely anything better. I never got over their sense of awe and I ate it up. I like to think myself special in those days. To be young and innocent. His features nodded into a form that was more familiar, a curt little smile. How strange. Usually I find indulging in nostalgia to be an unpleasant endeavor, but here and now it's easy and it's nice. I suppose it's because for once I can share my thoughts with another person rather than ruminating on the past by myself. Aww, his eyes peeked askance to yours before returning once more to the flames. You placed your hand lightly over his where it lay on the stone. He didn't move or turn to face you. His smile broadened noticeably. You rubbed the thumb idly over the back of his hand. It hasn't been easy to find anyone to reminisce with, not for a while. But then again, I only developed a sentimentality once I'd gone off to college. I was too young and proud for that sort of matter before then. There wasn't anything in my life to harbor much sentimentality for. That's how you say it, not whatever I said before. I suppose leaving was the catalyst, isn't it always? But once that part of my mind had developed, there wasn't anyone around to share the emotions with. My classmates and I, we don't have that kind of relationship. Wow. Now, this may be a complete shock to you, but I've been told that I can come across as a bit too forward. I know, it can be hard to believe. No, no. Your face cracked into the grin. Understatement of the year, anybody? Yeah, understatement. Very much. My intent is to be open with people so we can connect. It almost never works out that way, though. I've come to terms with the fact that I don't possess a knack for making friends. It was obnoxiously easy when I was a child, especially due to that big aforementioned big cool house. But now I keep finding myself at a loss for how to do it. I hope I wonder if we'll get a moment to actually go to Baxter's house in Our Life Now and Forever, because he is in that game, and oh, that would be so nice. That would be really cool if we could go to his house. I would love a moment like that. Did I read this already? But now I keep finding myself at a loss for how to do it. With a hit or miss endeavor, the vast majority of time I come up with a miss. Only lately it's been different, incredibly different. I almost worry my luck won't last. What do you mean? His voice had dropped to a low murmur, barely audible over the crackling wood in the grate. It will all be over soon. It was an echo of what he'd said after your hike this afternoon, but this time he went one small step further.
I could stay.
I wish I could stay. I mean, well, we can still talk over the phone, so I don't know what you're talking about, because, sir, you're never leaving us, period. His eyes were closed now, and a shallow crease had appeared in his forehead. You understood that he was talking about more than your short stint in this hotel. You can visit again someday? Maybe, but who knows, really? What do you mean? Okay, now you're making me mad. He lapsed into silence once more, becoming engrossed in his own thoughts. You found that you were doing the same disparate, I can't say that, emotions drifting in and out of clarity. You recalled another late night spent in Baxter's company not long before. Hey Baxter, this reminds me of when we were up half the night baking cakes for Miranda's party. Specifically that break we took in the middle. This finally had Baxter coming around to look at you, his face dimpled with a playful grin. Oh, you're right, it's a similar kind of event to be certain, although the beverage is much tamer this time around. He raised his eyebrows and poked the side of his paper cup with a fingernail. You giggled at the nod to your shared secret. Baxter would have had no trouble making his own fun and sunset bird, but it made you happy to think that you'd shown him a good time or two. He seemed grateful of it too. You both stayed and reminisced a while longer, but Baxter's cup had been empty and the fire was getting low. Baxter sighed. Unfortunately, we'd best call it quits here. We can't stave off the morning by avoiding sleep altogether. Yeah, I guess you're right. You got up from the fireplace in unison. At some point, you started holding hands. You couldn't remember when. You climbed the stairs and walked down the hall in companionable quiet. Pausing in front of the doors to your side-by-side rooms, Baxter cleared his throat, letting his hand fall from yours. Thank you once again for your company, Brittany. It's been an enjoyable evening. Until tomorrow, then. His back was to you as he reaches to his rear pocket, fetching his key card. Good night, Baxter. You unlocked the door to your room and stepped inside, heading straight for bed. You collapsed into it, your mind starting to lose its grip on consciousness the second you hit the mattress. A new day greeted you suddenly and without warning, sunshine streaming in through the windows. The curtains simply stood there and let it happen. You'd forgotten to draw them shut. The end to your miniature holiday had come. You promptly got out of bed and began to pack, following your usual routine as best you could. You didn't end up seeing Baxter again until after 11 o'clock. As promised, he'd taken a lie-in after burning the midnight oil and had to make a mad dash in order to check out at noon. Luckily, you managed the departure without too much of an issue. The two of you loaded up the car and set off for home. Home for one of you at least. While you were returning to your normal life, Baxter was instead exchanging one kind of vacation for another. Or maybe you thought watching the California landscape drift past the window, Baxter was leaving his own version of normal behind right now. The mountainside lodge had been home away from home for him, a simulacrum of his life in Oregon, much more familiar than a sleek condo by the sea. You continued to reflect on this as the road rolled out before you. Occasionally, you would swipe comments with Baxter on random subjects, at other times retreating into the privacy of your own head. Rapidly, your time up on a mountain was fading into memory. You were lucky, you decided, to have seen a small piece of Baxter. He hadn't trusted you to share, he hadn't trusted to you a shard of himself, a tiny spark of light shining from somewhere deep inside. You understood him better, even if only a fraction. That was probably the only glimpse into the real life of Baxter Ward that you'd get. And that is the end of the fourth moment. We have one more moment and then that's it. Oh my god. Okay, well everyone, that is the ending of the fourth moment mountain. That was an interesting moment. I did like the little escape in the middle of the night to the fireplace. That was really cute. And going on a hike. Yeah, that was really fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Next episode we will be finishing the last moment. The last step 3 moment of Baxter's DLC, and that's drinks. So I'm kind of wondering what that's going to be about. So yeah, everyone, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.